Have you ever pondered upon the intriguing moral paradox that the Arabian society presented during the lifetime of Muhammadsa, a society that was riddled with both extreme moral flaws and admirable qualities? The Arabs of that era were heavily inclined towards excessive drinking. In fact, their idea of a gentleman was one who hosted frequent drinking parties for his friends and neighbors. The wealthy would host at least 5 such gatherings every day. Yet, this was not seen as a vice, but rather a virtue. Gambling was another widespread practice, one that was viewed as a national sport rather than a destructive habit. Interestingly, they didn't gamble with the aim of accumulating wealth. On the contrary, the winners were expected to host parties for their friends. In times of war, gambling served as a means to fund military campaigns. This practice might seem familiar to us today, as modern society utilizes similar methods such as prize bonds to raise money for war. Despite these moral shortcomings, the Arabs were not devoid of admirable qualities. Their word was their bond. If a person sought protection from a leader or tribe, they were honor-bound to provide it. Failure to do so would result in the entire tribe losing face throughout Arabia. Poets were greatly revered, almost as national leaders. Leaders themselves were expected to be eloquent speakers and capable of composing verse. Hospitality was a virtue that had evolved into a national characteristic. A traveler arriving at a tribe's headquarters would be treated with the utmost respect and consideration, regardless of who they were. However, it's important to note that the societal norms were far from fair. Women were marginalized, with no rights or status. The horrifying practice of female infanticide was considered honorable, although it was not widespread across the entire country. In terms of their livelihood, trade was the chief occupation. Caravans were sent to distant places like Abyssinia, Syria, Palestine, and even India. The rich were particularly fond of Indian swords. Their clothing needs were largely met by Yemen and Syria. These were societies with no permanent settlements. Tribes would wander freely within their allotted territories, moving when water supplies dwindled. Their wealth consisted of sheep, goats, and camels, from which they made cloth and tents. Gold and silver were rare possessions, with the common folk making ornaments from cowries and aromatic substances. In summary, the Arabian society during the time of Muhammadsa was a melting pot of contradictions. A society where excessive drinking and gambling were virtues, yet the honor of one's word was paramount. A society where poets were revered. Hospitality was a national virtue, yet women were treated with utter disrespect. A society that was both deeply flawed and uniquely fascinating.